This is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey, and as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. What a great day. Monday, a beautiful Monday today. We got a pretty big show planned for all of you guys out there today. So let's jump right into it. We got a pretty big story, I think. So coming from Mike Lombardi, former NFL GM Mike Lombardi, he went on the Pat McAfee show and said that the Rams tried pretty adamantly to try to trade away quarterback Matthew Stafford in this offseason, which is pretty big news. Matthew Stafford, 2 years ago, coming off of a Super Bowl win last year, dealing with injuries. The entire Rams team was dealing with injuries, however, though. So I think this is a pretty big bombshell report if it is true. So are you concerned that the Rams, if they're trying to get rid of Matt Stafford, won't have this comeback year per se?
I'm not that surprised that they shopped him. I mean, even in the Super Bowl year, he made some pretty bad mistakes out there on the field through interceptions when he shouldn't have. I think that he played well in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl game. Brought him back from being behind, and they wound up winning the game. So he has the ability and the clutch to perform, but he's old. He's getting up there, right? He's had some pretty bad injuries along the way. He was injured last year. Not to say that he won't continue to have injuries. The Rams have 2 more years left on his deal, right? So I'm not surprised that they shopped him. And do I think that the Rams are going to have a great year this upcoming year? I would say you can't be sure about that. I think there's chances are that they won't have a very good year. They had a poor year this past year. They lost the Whitfield there on Whitworth on the offensive line, and that killed them. Their offensive line was horrible. And on defense, Aaron Donald's not getting any younger, and he had an injury too. So I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't do that well this year. And I don't think that Stafford's going to be too happy to learn that behind the scenes they were shopping him. I don't think that does much for the morale for him, his morale, or maybe the morale in the locker room. I think he's probably well liked in the locker room.
I would definitely say he's well liked. So getting in their schedule, I do think they're going to have a pretty good comeback year, I would say. This is what their schedule looks like. Games against the Seahawks. You open at Seahawks, 49ers, Bengals, Colts, Eagles, Cardinals, Steelers, Cowboys, Packers. Then a Week 10 bye, which is middle of the season. I think that's pretty good. Then you got the Seahawks, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Commanders, Saints, Giants, and 49ers. I'm going to give you a little pop quiz here. Let's see if you can get this little tidbit. Out of the first of 9 games, guess how many the Rams are favored in?
I would say they're probably favored in game 1. Game 4, that's 2.
So the Seahawks.
Game
and the
6,
Colts.
that's 3. Game 7, that's 4. And game 9, that's 5. 5 games, I would say.
So you say 5 out of the first 9
yeah.
The Rams are currently favored in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to tell you, you're wrong.
Oh, yeah?
By a long shot.
Oh, well?
A single game.
They're only favored by 1?
Week 6 against the Cardinals.
Wow.
The Seahawks, they're minus...
They're not favored against the Colts? The Colts?
Nope. Not favored against the Colts at Colts. They are favored... I believe they're 3 or 6 point underdogs against... I think they're 6 point underdogs against the Seahawks in Week 1. So the odds makers are saying this Rams team is going to be pretty bad like they were last year. Except the weird thing is, though, they're all coming back. They're all healthy. Now, you did lose Bobby Wagner. That's a pretty big loss. You lost Jalen Ramsey. That's a pretty big loss. But you got the biggest playmaker, 2 big playmakers, your quarterback, and a guy who just put up over 1,900 yards in Cooper Kupp. He's coming back. Now, you also re-signed Sony Michel. You decided to bring him back as well. You have Cam Akers, that too. So Sean McVay's ideology here is going to be, let's go all in on offense. And that's sort of what he's going to do. And I think that very well could be, a pretty bad thing because You need at least some defense, and the only defense you really have is really Aaron Donald. He's probably the biggest playmaker on the Rams, is Aaron Donald. So if that's your only defender, I have some pause to that. But this shouldn't be an absolutely wasted season. This shouldn't be an absolute abomination of a season to only be favored in one game out of your first half of the season, and it's against the Cardinals? Are you kidding me? That means Jordan Love is favored against you. Kenny Pickett's favored against you. I'll bring it up right now. Kenny Pickett's favored against you. Richardson or Gardner Minshew is favored against you. Geno Smith is favored against you. So the odds makers are saying this Rams team is probably going to be horrible. When it comes to the trading of Matt Stafford, the report that we got, that, the rumor was that Kirk Cousins is going to be a very, very attractive piece to both Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, now makes more sense, and I think can gain a lot of traction now. Because what I'm thinking is, if this is true, if they did try to shop Matt Stafford and were unsuccessful in this offseason, next offseason, if Kirk Cousins decides to become a free agent, Sean McVay may go all in getting Kirk Cousins. Would I think it'll be an upgrade? No. Honestly, I think it'll be a downgrade. Because Kirk Cousins is not good in the clutch. He's not a prime-time playmaker. If anything, he shrinks in the biggest moments. Kirk Cousins is a B- quarterback consistently. Matt Stafford is probably starting at a B+, and he definitely has his moments. So I'm saying that this is a crazy bombshell of a report to say that the Rams, 2 years coming out of winning a Super Bowl, and last year it made no sense that they would be any good because they were riddled with injuries all up and down. They had a bunch of offensive line moves. Their defense had injuries. You lost Cooper Kupp. You lost Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's still dealing with that elbow injury that most baseball players get. And the report is that it could be lingering throughout the rest of his career. So my guess would be that this is pretty, significant, at least the injuries. So that could be why they're moving off of him. And that also could be why he had no trade market. It could be that teams are concerned about his potential of getting hurt again, or this lingering elbow injury could come again. Because last season, if we remember, the reason why he was out was because he was dealing with a spinal cord bruise back November 20th, which knocked him out for the rest of the season. He was also dealing with concussions. He had elbow injuries as well. So if that elbow injury is going to linger, and a lot of people are saying it should.
I mentioned the injuries.
Yeah, no, he was dealing with injuries all around. So the first time he could become an unrestricted free agent is 4 years from now. He's on a 4-year, $160 million contract extension with $130 million of it fully guaranteed.
Jay.
Do I think Sean McVay will be there at the end of that contract? Not based on him getting fired. I do think the Rams will keep on to him. I think he may leave because guess what? He was already really 1 foot out the door, apparently. Aaron Donald will be gone probably by this or next year. That's my guess. He already, 2 years ago before they won the Super Bowl, he wrote his retirement letter. He just didn't send it into the NFL. So he was already basically retired. He decided to come back last year. He was dealing with injuries. He said he's staying another year. I don't think this team is in rebuild mode, and I think it's a dumb idea to trade away Matt Stafford, who in large part has been a success for you because he won you a Super Bowl. In the first year he got there, you guys went to the Super Bowl and beat the Bengals. The high-flying, dominant Bengals with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Mixon. That the Bengals beat the Chiefs to get to you, and you beat them. So I think this would be a pretty dumb idea if the Rams decide, you know what, let's just get rid of him. I think it's honestly dumb that they would shop him, period, because he won you a Super Bowl.
Particularly when he's got that much left on his contract.
4 years left. He's got 4 years. And they just say, you know what, we're going to shop you to see what we can get. We're going to try to trade you. Trade you to who? What team is going to try to go get Matt Stafford, who would
take on that contract?
I think, honestly, if the Giants didn't sign Daniel Jones to a 4-year 160, they should have. I mean, think about it. Matt Stafford, but here's the problem, though. Matt Stafford's an old quarterback. He's 35 years old. Daniel Jones is what, 24,
He's had a lot
25?
of hits and a lot of injuries, too.
Yeah, well, right now, would I take right now Matt Stafford over Daniel Jones? 1,000%. Because I think as we're speaking right now, I think Matt Stafford is a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think he'll make the Hall of Fame. I think people and then the voters, the Hall of Fame voters, understand that basically going to Detroit is like a death sentence for your career. At least it was for a large part. It seems to be coming back from the ashes right now with Dan Campbell and Jared Goff and that dominating offense, phenomenal offensive line as well. But right now, would I take Matt Stafford to bring you more success in New York over Daniel Jones, even though he's 9 years younger than you? Yeah, I would. Because I guarantee you put Matt Stafford on that Giants team, I'd put them in the play. I would solidify them in the playoffs, regardless of the talent. Regardless of right now their weapons or what some people think maybe are not phenomenal weapons. That's what I would do. Because guess what? Matt Stafford already dealt with absolute bums. It was at least statistics wise, for his career, I think he was largely successful.
But the team was terrible.
The team was terrible. But him himself, he played as well as he can with terrible talent. I think right now the Giants were better than those Lions before. I'm not talking about the Calvin Johnson Lions. I'm talking about post Calvin Johnson, so after 2013. So what I'm saying is,
do you think the Rams? How about this? Do you think the Rams would have traded for Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford for Daniel Jones?
It wouldn't be straight up. I do not think. I think Matthew Stafford is more valuable than just Daniel Jones. But I think it would have been interesting if we saw Daniel Jones and Sean McVay try to make that work. I think that could have been interesting. Do I think it would have been a smart idea? No. Because, but for the Giants, honestly, it might have made sense. But if Daniel Jones comes out here and balls and just absolutely goes crazy and has another pretty good year, then this is, this doesn't make any sense. Now, the Kyle Shanahan thing potentially for next year, that doesn't make sense to me at all. You have Brock Purdy. Are you going to put him to the bench after he just went, 7-0 or something like that? No, I wouldn't. I would keep him as my starting quarterback.
Well, we'll see how he plays this year.
If Trey Lance was my starter and these rumors came out, I would say go for Kirk Cousins, yeah. But no, I'm not. So Sean McVay, this could be a potential option where Sean McVay, decides, depending on who's out there, we could see a Trey Lance get out there potentially, and maybe Sean McVay is enticed by, Trey Lance's intangibles. He's 6'4", 220. He supposedly has a bunch of potential that apparently we won't get to see.
I'd be surprised if the 49ers traded Lance within their division. Right?
The Lions traded away T.J. Hawkinson interdivision or intra-division.
That's a little different. It's not a quarterback.
That's true, but. Hey, the highest bidder, I would say, same thing with Dame Lillard. Bring your highest bidder, please. And that's whoever gets him. Not this, I want to go to the Heat only, and his agent coming out and saying that. But, I think it's interesting now. Rams tried to trade a probable Hall of Famer and a Super Bowl winning quarterback who just was dealing with an injury. Your entire team was dealing with an injury, and you're trying to trade him away. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But, it's the Rams. They're trying to figure out something. Sean McVay, I don't know. My guess is the Rams will be back in the playoffs. I think I have them winning 10 games or something like that. I do not see them going 5-12 again and barely being a worse team than the Arizona Cardinals were with Kyler Murray on that team.
Bring their schedule back up again?
Sure.
It seems to me they should. I had them favored in 5 of the first 9 games.
Right.
I think they have a hard time against San Francisco. They can't really beat them in the regular season, right? They've had no success doing that. I don't think they'll beat the Bengals. The Eagles, I don't think they'd win, right? So that's 3 losses. I think the rest of them they're competitive in the first 9. So maybe they're 6-3 in the first 9. And then in the last part of the season, who's week 13 there? I can't.
Week 13 is the Browns.
The Browns. So they could win those 3 games. The Seahawks, Cardinals, and Browns. They should beat Washington, the Saints, and the Giants. So that's 6 wins, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 wins. 11, 12 wins. They could get to 12 wins.
I think 12 wins might be pushing it, but I'm bringing it down.
Well, who would you have them lose to then to get to just 10 wins?
Well, I think there's some teams that you definitely lose to. You're going to lose both to the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan is, he crushes Kyle Shanahan crushes Sean McVay every single time. Undefeated record. You're going to lose to the Bengals, definitely. You're going to lose to Philadelphia. My guess is you'd lose to the Ravens. I think the Saints game could be interesting.
I don't think the Saints will beat them.
So the only definite losses in my mind are the 49ers twice, so that's 2 losses, the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Cowboys.
That's 5.
Those are definite losses. And the Ravens. The
That's
Ravens.
12 and 5.
The Ravens are a
11
definite
and
loss, I think.
11 and
11
6.
and 6. Now, some games could be interesting, I think. The Green Bay game, I think, could be interesting. We'll see what Jordan Love brings to the table.
The Dallas game could be interesting.
I have that as a definite loss because I just think that they're probably going to lose that. I think the Saints game could be interesting. So, my mind right now, we're talking about 11 wins. It could be potentially 9. Could be potentially 9. The Browns, I expect them to be bad, but truthfully, what if Deshaun Watson goes back to what he was 3-4 years ago? And he was putting up 4,900 yards and crushing it with D-Hop, except this time he'll be crushing it with Amari Cooper. I think you could potentially see, this could go bad, and I can understand why some people, like the odds makers, are saying, yeah, in the first 9 games, the only team you're favored in is one that's probably going to be without their starting quarterback. But honestly, I think this may be getting a little ridiculous just because they're taking a look at last year, but last year everybody was hurt. So you can't really, put it to this year.
All right, well, we're against Vegas then. Vegas thinks they're going to stink, and we think they're going to be a playoff team.
Generally, that's not good betting against Vegas. They generally know something we don't.
They're probably wrong. I mean, I picked the Colts last year to be a world
15
beater.
and 2.
And they got trounced.
Yeah, no, it was pretty bad. Let's get to our next topic here. So, basketball is a topic that we've been talking about a lot. And this one's pretty interesting. So, Greg Popovich, at his very advanced years now, we're talking about...
He's 74 years old.
74 years old. He's a 74-year-old coach right now. And he just signed a 5-year, $80 million contract extension with the San Antonio Spurs. By the end of this contract, he'll be 79 years old, which is absolutely insane. We're talking about an NBA coach, the winningest NBA coach in the history of the NBA. Just signed at 74 years old, signed a 5-year contract with $80 million. Reset the coaching market. A 74-year-old coach just reset everything. Previously, Monty Williams had the biggest contract. So I want to know, 74-year-old coach, the Spurs were one of the worst teams in the NBA last year. They just drafted Victor Wembanyama. Was it a smart idea for the Spurs to extend Greg Popovich?
No.
You don't think it was smart?
No. He's 74 years old. He's going to be almost 80 years old when he gets out of this contract. I think probably the thought is he's going to coach maybe 2 years, and then in step up, he'll be in the front office for the rest of it, because he has the double role there, right? He's the president of basketball operation, but their team has been horrible for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Right? They haven't been in the playoffs for ages.
4 years.
Right? And they disaffected Kawhi Leonard. He couldn't get out of there fast enough, right? So I wonder about Greg Popovich. I think he's past his prime. I don't understand why the ownership of the Spurs would give him that kind of deal. $80 million. He is the winningest coach of all time, but
he is. He
had some fantastic players playing for him back then too. And I don't think one guy, Victor Wembanyama or whatever his name is going to be the one that takes him to the promised land. Just one guy. Did the Spurs have anybody else besides him?
Well, when the player you draft, according to scouts, and we're going to talk about Victor Wembanyama coming up after the break, but when you draft a guy who is, projected to be at the same level or a better prospect than LeBron James was, you may stay for a little while. But I'm going to agree with you. I do not think this was a smart idea to extend Greg Popovich for one major reason that has cost him several seasons. So Greg Popovich is sort of like the Bill Belichick of the NBA. He's very stuck in his own philosophy. I'm sure if Bill Belichick had the opportunity to do it, he would take whatever game manager quarterback is out there, build a pretty good offensive line, but his main focus would be run game and defense. That's the way Bill Belichick won about 20-something years ago. Early Brady, before Brady was the Tom Brady we know him today. His main focus was getting a great running back, Corey Dillon. I'm pretty sure he had Curtis Martin at one time.
No, Curtis Martin left before he got there.
Okay, so the Patriots had Curtis Martin. So you had good, even Lawrence Maroney was a pretty good running back for them as well. You had running game, and then you had, the all-time great Patriots defenses in the early 2000s to the mid-2000s. Mike Vrabel, Teddy Bruschi, Richard Seymour, Ty Law, all these phenomenal defensive players, and that's how Bill Belichick won. Greg Popovich doesn't want to implement the biggest change in the NBA. About 9 years ago, Steph Curry broke into this game, dropping several threes every single game, changed the way that we look at basketball today. Greg Popovich does not want to implement the three in his game plan. That's something he, for some reason, refuses to do. He is not fully, bought into the three ball. And that, I feel like, has cost him a lot. So his philosophy has cost him the past 4 seasons. They have not had a winning record in 4 seasons. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse. It got so bad they won 22 games this season. And we're talking about a 74-year-old coach now. He's going to be near 75 when we pick up, get in the heat of things in the NBA season. And you just drafted Victor Wembanyama. There is one positive, though, that comes out of this. Popovich knows how to develop big men. We're talking about a guy who's worked with David Robinson and Tim Duncan, LaMarcus Aldridge at some of his best years with the Spurs. So we're talking about a guy who knows how to develop big men, and we're talking about Mr. Fundamental here. As soon as Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili and Kawhi Leonard and Tim Duncan, they all left the Spurs, Popovich was supposedly going to walk away at that point, but he decided to stay, and I think it's cost him a lot because he hasn't won a playoff series in several years. The last playoff series he won is when he won the title back in 2013, 2014. So we're about 9-10 years out of the last time that Greg Popovich won a playoff series. Or I'm sorry, no, 2015, 2016 he won a playoff series. That's a lie as well. 2016, 2017 he won a playoff series. So we're talking about, 8 years, 7-8 years. They got swept, by the way. And the last time they were they won a playoff series, they went all the way down to the Western Conference Finals. They won 61 games, and that was with they had LaMarcus Aldridge on that team. They still had Tony Parker. They had Danny Green. Manu Ginobili was still on that team. So, once those guys left, Kawhi left. They had DeMar DeRozan on that team, and DeMar DeRozan, he couldn't get out of it. I mean, he was suffering there. I mean, he played okay. But we're talking about, the success of players. Right now, San Antonio could be, the next, Charlotte Bobcats. The Charlotte Bobcats were terrible. So they were absolutely garbage. We had DJ Augustin go there. We had Cody Zeller went there. He's saying, players generally don't bounce back. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist got drafted by them. A lot of players, when you go to a bad team, generally, your career goes there to die. So my guess would be the Spurs team is not going to be all that great. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs with Victor Wembanyama. I truthfully don't. I think, honestly, they're not going to be the worst team in the NBA. They're not. I don't think they're going to be the 10 seed. I don't think they're going to be the 11 seed. My guess would be they'll be a 12, 13 seed. So they'll be near the bottom, but not the absolute bottom. But that's my guess because I really do not feel.
Who do they have besides Wembanyama now? Anybody?
I'll look at the roster for you. So currently, the San Antonio Spurs. Let's see if you can name any of these players.
I don't know any of them.
The only one this team is nearly a complete reset. There's some players that have been in the league for a little while, but most of these guys, a lot of these guys are very young guys. We're talking about guys, within 3 years of joining the NBA, 3 years or less.
That might be a good thing.
Well, they've been in a full rebuild mode here, and I don't see how with Greg Popovich, a 74-year-old coach, how he alone can develop a philosophy for younger guys.
I'm not holding anything against Greg Popovich. He's a great coach.
He's the winningest
coach in the history of the NBA. But he is 74 years old, and it's going to be tough. I mean, 41 games of the year, you're away from home. You're traveling. And that puts a wear and tear on you. If you make the playoffs, you'll be traveling even more.
Right.
So I just think, I don't see him making it through the whole 5 years of the contract. Yeah?
My guess would be, I agree with what you're saying. He'll be there for 1 or 2 years. He'll coach 1 or 2 years. He may even make it 3, depending on the success. He may go. Here's the thing: if the Spurs make the playoffs every single year and they're competitive somehow with only Victor Wembanyama leading the way primarily, then I think he might be there all 5 years. But I do think maybe at the year 3 or at the year 2, he'll go back upstairs. He'll stick as the primary. He'll only be like the president of basketball operations or something like that. He'll be in the front office, and someone else will take up that head coaching role and fill in for what Greg Popovich was.
We're going to talk about Wembanyama next topic, so I'll keep my comment about him till we get to that.
Well, let's take a break then. So coming up, we discuss Victor Wembanyama's bounce back game in back-to-back summer league game after his first game was absolutely pitiful and social media went crazy. And are the Celtics about to make a massive move that could push them over the edge and win that NBA title? We discuss that right after this.
You have a lot to say. Maybe you've thought, I should start a podcast. Meet Anchor, the easiest way to make a podcast ever. It's a powerful mobile app and web tool that lets you record a podcast anywhere and distribute it everywhere. It's great whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out. And it's 100% free. You can record your show straight into Anchor on your phone, iPad, or the web, using any mic you want. Record alone or with friends or co-hosts anywhere in the world. You can add background music and transitions, and your listeners can send you voice messages that you can incorporate right into your next episode. If you want to produce your show using another app, you can upload your own audio directly from web or mobile, and still take advantage of Anchor's totally free podcast hosting. Once your podcast is ready to publish, Anchor can automatically distribute it to every major podcast platform. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, so your listeners can hear your show wherever they want. And on the web, you can see detailed analytics about how people are listening. Plus, you'll get a great-looking profile page where anyone can listen to your podcast or subscribe to it. And if you want to ask your audience to support your work, Anchor makes it easy to collect monthly payments from the people who love your podcast and want to see it grow. You really don't need a recording studio, expensive equipment, or a bunch of technical knowledge to deal with a podcast feed. Just get started and join the diverse community of podcasters already on Anchor. We can't wait to hear your podcast.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe,
interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
Podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with Anchor, watch on Spotify.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey, and as always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic because the next great sensation of the NBA, Victor Wembanyama, the greatest prospect since LeBron James, or to some scouts, even better than the prospect that was LeBron James. He actually had a comeback game. In the first game, it was pitiful, and social media went crazy calling him a bust after his 2 for 13 shooting game, but he did have 8 rebounds along with 5 blocks. He also had 4 personal fouls. Not great. But he had a comeback game last night in a loss against the Trailblazers where he went 9 of 14 shooting, played 27 minutes. He had scored 27 points and he had 12 boards, his first double-double of his NBA career, which is also exciting to watch. He also had 3 blocks to go along with that double-double. So I want to know, what was your biggest takeaway seeing Victor Wembanyama in his second game? And by the way, before you jump in, there was a report out today. He did get shut down for the rest of the Summer League, so this will be the last we see of him playing until the NBA season. So what was your takeaway from Victor Wembanyama's play last night?
Well, he played very well, and he looked good out there, but he's a center, and he looks pretty thin to me. I mean, he doesn't look like he's going to go bumping up against the likes of Jokic and who was some of the other really Embiid, right? Or Young. I mean, Davis, Anthony Davis. Those guys are big and powerful, right? This guy looks kind of. I don't think he's got the heft to go against those guys.
Right.
I think that I worry about that a little bit.
No, I do think that is a perfectly fine reason to be concerned, and that is the large concern here is the fact that at 7'4", he weighs only 209 pounds. That's the big thing with Victor Wembanyama. He's very, very thin, and we see it. The only problem is with that is that we take a look at KD. KD has ankle issues and he has leg problems, and we see how that affects his career. But at 19, like, he's younger than me. Think about that. And I can understand why. I think large part, social media, sort of as a collective group, the purpose of social media, one of the purposes is to go crazy, create all these, rumors and reports and everything like that, create absurd takes, and sort of, over-exaggerate, their ideas, their suggestions, everything like that. So when Victor Wembanyama goes 2 for 13 in one game in his first ever NBA action, and then he didn't really help his case by after in the post game saying how he didn't know what he was doing out there. That's not a great that you might need to get some, and players do this, young players do this. They need social media coaching to sort of manipulate the media, say sort of dance around questions, everything like that. So maybe you got to work on that a little bit. But you go out, you get comfortable, you have more NBA action, you practice more, you go out, and this is what we saw. We saw a beautiful comeback game, 27 points, 12 rebounds in 27 minutes. He shot the three better. He was shooting overall significantly better. And this is why, we look at him, it's perfectly fine to shut him down, because what he needs to do is he needs to put on some weight. He needs to get into the weight room, start eating, take the entire summer to work on your game, shoot better. He's not nowhere near a great shooter, and that's where I think potentially we could see some problems, because the NBA, big men shoot a lot. Big men are great shooters, and especially from behind the three. That's why a lot of them, Embiid is great at shooting threes. We have Jokic, who we saw what Jokic was in the finals. He would take the craziest shots, hand in his face. He would do his greatest Dirk. He has a very Dirk Nowitzki kind of a shot. He doesn't have the leg kick, but the way he shoots the ball, it's very, very similar to him. He has that shot, and it's a rainbow, beautiful swish three. And how the hell did that go in? Victor Wembanyama can't really do that. And so, when we're talking about a guy like Victor Wembanyama, he's 7'4". So rebounds and blocks should be a large part of his game. If he had a problem getting or holding on to rebounds, and he didn't block the ball a lot, that's where we could see some concern, and that's where I think we wouldn't see him as high of a prospect or as highly regarded as a prospect as we do today. But the good thing is, a very major upside is, he is a very efficient player. He gets a lot of rebounds, gets a lot of blocks, but the outside shot is where a lot of big men are being super efficient. That's how the NBA has evolved. And that's in large part thanks to Steph Curry changing the way the NBA was. Before Steph Curry dropped 400 threes in a season, we didn't see like Tyson Chandler or we'd see Stoudemire go up and pull up from deep and shoot. We didn't see that, but now we see a lot of young guys. We see people in third grade trying to shoot threes, practice their three shot, and that's the way the NBA is. So, and that's what Chet Holmgren, I think, will actually, in my mind, have a lot of problems. He's a very thin, tall guy. Going up against Anthony Davis and Embiid and Jokic and even Giannis, or anyone that plays super physical, like Sabonis is a pretty big guy, but Kevon Looney just dominated him every single time he got into the paint. Kevon Looney would deny any inside shot in the playoffs that he had. So if Victor Wembanyama goes up and he keeps getting bodied by, it doesn't even need to be someone who's taller than you.
Maybe they don't play him at center.
That's the thing. He was playing a lot of on offense. He was staying around the 3-point line. There was not many times where you saw Victor Wembanyama at the beginning of the offensive setup go down low.
You might play him at small forward.
I guarantee you at 7'4", you're not gonna play him as a forward.
No, he wouldn't be. You know what? He's going to have matchup problems too, right? If they don't play him at center, he's not going to be quick enough to guard the guys that he'd be up against. So it's going to be tough, I think, for him. I agree. He needs to put on about 50 pounds.
Yeah. I think that'll be depending. I guess it depends on the team, but I do think 50 pounds probably get him to around 260 at the moment. At 7'4", 209 seems thin to me.
To me, right? I mean that is amazing. He's only 209 pounds.
Yeah, 209 pounds.
7'4".
7'4".
Wow.
So he's probably got to put on.
He didn't look that that thin to me, but
his arms and legs are incredibly thin. And we see Kevin Durant dealing with a lot of leg injuries. His legs are very, very small. And you know what? He's got to put on, like, you don't want to get to Zion levels. That's the thing. I'm not saying it's a fine line, but there is a pretty defined line that you can't really cross, because then you get into, you can't support your own weight. Zion's having a problem when he lands. There is a lot of weight landing on those legs. And the one injury he's been dealing with a lot is leg injuries. And that's why maybe, A, he's not playing games, or if the Pelicans get the right offer reportedly, that they'll trade him away to another team. Maybe those offers won't come in.
Well, why do you think Wembanyama went number 1?
I think because what we're looking at, it truthfully is a 7'4" guy who was incredibly dominant in the EuroLeague. He was crushing it. And I think what we could see, here's the thing.
He's playing center.
Scouts calling him the best prospect since LeBron. Some even saying that he's a better prospect than LeBron. I think we have to wait and see.
I find that hard to believe.
That is a lot of pressure to put on a 19-year-old kid. Yeah. And so when people look at that first game against the Hornets, by the way, which they won, even with Victor shooting, was it 2 of 13 and 1 of 6 from 3.
And I don't think the Summer League means much.
It's just right? It's a showcase. It's a showcase.
Some of those players are just out there to fill a position. They're not going to wind up anywhere near the NBA.
Some could make the team. We don't know, but I think
some of them are going to make it for sure.
A lot of these guys will probably stay in their G League and stuff like that. Stay in the lower levels of the NBA. I'm not saying not a lot of these guys are probably going to be on that starting roster when the season starts to come. So I'm actually excited to see how Victor Wembanyama does. We'll see how he does with Greg Popovich. That's honestly probably the most exciting thing that I'm thinking of is, how is Greg Popovich going to develop Wemby into what he's done with a lot of centers that have come into the Spurs, have been drafted by the Spurs, have developed under Popovich.
This guy is very different than them. The Admiral was a very big guy. I mean, he was very big, and so was Tim Duncan. Those guys are hefty. They were not only tall, they were built too. Yeah. And
David Robinson was about 30 pounds more and 3 inches shorter than Victor is right now.
And how about Tim Duncan?
Tim Duncan was 6'11". He was 250. So 250, we're talking about guys who were 3 to 5 inches shorter, also 30 to 50 pounds heavier than you are. And we saw what they were. They were dominant down low, and that's exactly probably what Victor Wembanyama is going to have to be. Because if his outside shot isn't there, it's good to have a mid-range, and I think Wemby does have a pretty good mid-range. But what he's going to be really efficient in, and where I think Greg Popovich is going to put him in, is down low. Get the rebounds. Give your team second chance points because you're 7'4". Yeah. The problem with Anthony Davis is Anthony Davis believes he's a shooter. He's not an efficient shooter. He's a better guy down low, bodying up to his matchup and getting inside points. Can he hit an occasional three? Sure. We even have Karl Anthony Towns trying to hit threes more often now. A lot of these guys are it's good to have a mid-range shot. But some of these guys in the NBA are significantly better down low. So Anthony Davis staying around the three-point line is not where he needs to be.
You made the argument for him gaining some weight, because if he's playing down low at 209 pounds, 7'4", against some of these NBA guys, he's going to wind up getting hurt.
Well, we talk about Chet Holmgren. He's 4 inches shorter and more than 10 pounds lighter. And we already did with a Linz Frank injury as well. Kept him out all of last year. Chet Holmgren needs to gain a lot of weight too as well. 4 inches shorter, more than 10 pounds lighter. Like, these guys are going to get smoked by bigger, stronger defenders.
I think you're right.
But the benefit of Chet is he has a pretty good three-point shot. You know, call it a hot take, but as soon as I saw Chet Holmgren get drafted, I say this guy might be a little bit better version of Kristaps Porzingis. He very well may be. Because I do not see him playing a center spot or a power forward position. And, you know, being that sort of, I'm not talking about a true traditional power forward, because a lot of traditional power forwards don't have a mid-range shot. They have a very close shot, and they got dunks and layups. That is their primary role. I think Chet Holmgren having a three-point shot is good for him, because at 195, 7 feet tall, while yes, you're probably going to be used to grab a lot of rebounds, I do not see you going up against Anthony Davis or Jokic or Embiid, who, if you're defending them, they will drive right through you. I think Embiid, truthfully, will lower his shoulder, drive right into Chet Holmgren, and probably cause him to get another injury. Because he is like paper compared to these bigger centers.
I know.
So I'm scared for Victor Wembanyama and his weight. He needs to, and it's good that you shut him down. You don't want to cause a stupid injury. Like Scoot Henderson's already hurt. He was supposed to be better than Brandon Miller. And right now we can't see if he's better than Brandon Miller because he only played like 3/4 of a summer league game.
And what happened to him? What injury?
I think it's some sort of ankle injury. I think he's gonna be out. I thought I saw 2 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
So already that is a problem for the Trailblazers already. So it's good. You got to put him in the weight room. Got to let him practice. Got to work on his shooting because the first time we saw Victor Wembanyama in a Spurs uniform, it was like this long video clip or whatever. He couldn't hit a single jump shot. He was shooting from all over the court. He couldn't hit a single thing.
You know, that's his first game. I mean, the second game he had 27 points.
He had a double-double in his second game.
Yeah.
So that's why I think we need to chill, let this develop. He's a 19-year-old kid who right now is being compared to LeBron James as a prospect.
I don't know how you compare him
Some
to LeBron.
say he's better than LeBron as a prospect. To me, that is absolutely crazy.
I'd like to see some replays of his EuroLeague, some of his EuroLeague games.
They're fascinating to watch, absolutely. So I think right now we got to take a chill pill and just let's see how the Spurs start off. Here's a little prediction that I think makes a lot of sense. I think in the first 10 to 15 games, the Spurs are going to be around to below 500. So we're talking they may go 7-8. And that, I think, is a great start from where they were last year. They won 22 games last year. So if you're telling me at 15 games they're going to be about 500, I think that is a perfectly, fine take. And I think, that's not that aggressive. Because once again, I need to see. If you're telling me he's the same prospect as LeBron James, he has to live up to that. Because then think about it. If the ball, think about it. Mahomes, he sort of flew under the radar. We talk about guys, bum quarterbacks right now who got picked before Mahomes did. But once he had that first great season, that was the standard we kept for him. So when he had like a 4,600-yard season, we thought, oh, he's slipping in his career. No, the bar was just set incredibly high that if he doesn't hit that, we think it's a failure. Because scouts have already said that Victor Wembanyama is at the level of LeBron James coming into the league or better. We're talking about a guy that needs to average like 25 points a game, 13-something rebounds per game, maybe 4 or 5 assists per game, shoot nearly 50% since he's a big man. That's kind of what we're thinking about for a 19-year-old kid going into the NBA.
Gonna be tough.
With better big men, more skilled big men than were in prior years when LeBron was in the league. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn because I'm like, we gotta take a chill pill. But if everyone's saying that this is who this kid is, he's got to prove it then.
Can't wait to see.
It's gonna be a very, very fascinating NBA season. But we'll have to wait and see. Let's get into our last topic of today's show. So we talked about this on Friday, just a little bit, and I'm gonna bring up the quote here. So a Boston Globe writer, Adam Himmelsbach, said this, I think it was on Friday. He said, no, the Celtics do not have a plan to start a youth movement center on draft picks. This capital will eventually serve as currency in a larger deal, with the Celtics well positioned for a seismic strike. The spree of recent activity has bred speculation that they could be staking out their big move right now, but a league source said that appears unlikely. Now, this was in large response to after the Grant Williams trade, they got a bunch of picks. And speaking of those picks, these are their picks. We brought this up on Friday. They have all their future first-round picks. They have Golden State's first-round pick next year. They got a second-round pick spot with Dallas 2 years from now. The facts for this trade or this pick swap need to be sorted out, but they could have San Antonio's first-round pick in 2028, and they also have six future second-round picks. So they are stockpiling these draft picks here, and they're gonna be just like this writer said. I do not see the Celtics going through the draft just picking first round and then a bunch of these second-round prospects that they could potentially draft. They're going for someone potentially huge here. And if we're talking about a seismic strike, I'm going to ask you, who do you think this mystery seismic player could be that the Celtics could trade for?
Yeah, well, they're not in rebound. They're not in a rebuild mode. They're not thinking about rebuild when they stockpile all those picks. That's for sure. They're going to try to sign. They're going to sign Jaylen Brown to a supermax, and Tatum is going to get one of those too. So they're going to be in a win now mode. So they're going to use those picks for some sort of big deal, that's for sure. And I'm not so sure how valuable those second-round picks are. I mean, in the NBA, after the first 7 players, it's downhill from there generally. You don't see that many superstars coming out of the second round in the NBA draft, that's for sure. So I don't know how valuable those are. Those first-round picks are pretty valuable. So I do think that they will try that. What they need to me to put them over the top and be really in there in the finals in the next 3 or 4 years is a super duper point guard. I really think that's the piece that's missing, and I think that they will go after. There are 4 point guards out there that I think should be considered, and I don't know whether any of these teams are in the thinking about a rebuild mode. I know that the Kings are certainly not in a rebuild mode, and De'Aaron Fox is one of the point guards that I would consider coming up and being, in kind of an elite status point guard. He would be somebody to look at. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is another one with the Thunder. The Thunder are not that competitive. He's their best player by far. I think he would be one to look at. And then Tyrese Halliburton for the Pacers. The Pacers are not they're a pretty bad team this year. So they may try one more year with what they've got. And if they don't do well, maybe they'd go rebuild, and you could give them a lot of picks. And then Trae Young is the other one, Atlanta. I think he's a little unhappy there. And they did make the playoffs. They got beat by the Celtics in the first round. So I think that he would be the one there. So those 4 guys, I think point guard is what the Celtics are missing. And one of those 4 guys would be what I'd use those picks for.
I just want what are your 4 again? I have Halliburton, Fox, Trae Young,
Alexander,
and Shai Gilgeous. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went point guards as their big seismic trade opportunity.
Yeah.
I have 3. Now, these are probably, I think, honestly, more unlikely than yours, I think. But depending on how this particular season goes, I think, some of these potential trades are more than just completely throwaways. Oh, that'll never happen. Now, obviously, the seismic trade will probably include Jaylen Brown, regardless if he signs the Supermax. Because there is no way the Celtics could afford 2 guys worth $613 million total and get another seismic player to be a big 3. You just can't do it. So my guess would be, just like I talked about on Friday, it could be a scenario where Dame comes into Boston. They trade away Jaylen Brown next year to then be able to sort of afford Jason Tatum's Supermax extension. Because you can't afford all those pieces together. So if we're talking about a trade, it'll include Jaylen Brown, and it will include a lot of these picks. There are 3 players, none of which you have said, and I'm taking sort of a different approach except for one of these players, that I think the Celtics could honestly use. So the first one is a position I agree with you. It's going to be a guard. It's Luka Doncic. If we're talking about a franchise, a organization like the Mavericks,
he's a point guard.
That's what I'm saying. I agree with you with the first one. So we're talking about the Mavericks here. They made a Western Conference Finals with Jalen Brunson. They let him go. New York gets him. And so right now they got Kyrie, and they plummeted with Kyrie. If the Mavericks don't see success here, now with a full season of Kyrie, and by the way, this is all my picks are thematic here. It's all under this theme of this organization is killing me right now. We're not winning anytime soon. Let me get out of here. So Luka will be the first one. The next one, which we talked about this player on Friday, is Joel Embiid. If the 76ers lose Harden, they don't get really anyone super efficient to go along with Harden. You need a big guy. You got to get a big guy because Robert Williams has health issues. Al Horford will probably be going at the end of this year, and Kristaps Porzingis has 1 year left on his contract, and this is the year. This is a make or break year for at least for the Celtics to potentially re-sign Kristaps Porzingis, because if he plays terrible, the Celtics probably won't extend him beyond just this year. And the last guy is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think, honestly, think about it. And the Bucks, historically, actually have traded away some big-time players. We forget back, what was it, in the 70s, where they traded away Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who is like the best high school player to ever exist.
Well, Jabbar wanted to leave the Bucks.
He wanted to leave, and they honored it. They could have said no. You're with us. They allowed him to. They allowed him to go.
That's a long, long time ago, Nate.
I understand. It's about 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're talking about they let him go. And Giannis with this team, we've seen Giannis talk about, losing and the journey of losing. And we saw how, after that Heat series, I don't know whether it was embarrassment, anger, defeat, or whatever, he did not look happy. And if we're talking about a team that instead of getting younger, quicker, more efficient, they stayed the same.
These three guys, you're
Luka,
counting on
Embiid, Giannis.
Yeah, you're counting on those teams to accept Jaylen Brown and trade for them.
Jaylen Brown and, of course, other pieces, plus a bunch of those picks. Let's bring in the picks again. I mean, they got a lot of first-round picks. They have more second-round picks. They got a lot of trade assets, at least picks-wise, that they could do. And honestly, for a team like the Bucks that is an older team, a very old team, that could be enticing next year, where they have Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. Drew Holiday is basically at the end of his rope. Giannis is really the only major key player on that team that still has some youth to him left, that really is hitting his prime stride right now. So if we're talking about a Brook Lopez who's getting up there in years, Chris Middleton isn't as efficient as he once was, and Drew Holiday said he's going to retire at the end of his contract.
Yeah, well,
Giannis is going to be like the last one left.
In your scenario, though, the Celtics are suffering badly at guard now, right? Because they're going to lose their best shooting guard, right? And Jaylen Brown,
right?
And they don't have a great point guard right now, right? So only Doncic is the one in my mind that would fit well, because losing Jaylen Brown, then you won't have a big three, right? You'll only have a big two. It'll be Tatum and whoever else it is.
I don't think the Celtics.
I don't know how you improve yourself that much. Swapping Jaylen Brown for one of those guys, I don't see how that improves the Celtics that much.
Here. So Jaylen Brown, we saw in the playoffs, he couldn't hang on to the ball. He had 8 turnovers.
Well, he shouldn't be handling the ball anyway. It should be a point guard should handle the ball,
I understand.
Point guard should find him open. The guy's a great shooter.
Okay,
that's what they should be doing. He shouldn't be the guy handling the ball anyway.
Hey, my entire
my mode is to hang on to both Tatum and Brown and find a way to get one of these, get a high profile point guard.
I
don't think it's Doncic. I don't think the Dallas will ever let him go. Number one, and I don't think a lot of these. I agree that you couldn't afford him in that mix.
Yeah.
So these guys, you might be able to fit them in.
I really don't see any way you're gonna pay Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum nearly $60 million a year each, and then afford a perennial superstar, even with yours. Halliburton, he just signed a massive deal. De'Aaron Fox is a very key piece of the Kings. Trae Young, he's probably the most likely to leave his team, because he already got his head coach fired. And just like Kyler Murray, you got your head coach fired, you need to step up, otherwise you're next. We're not going to fire a brand new coach just because you're here. So my guess would be Trae Young, out of the 7 players we said today, Trae Young is the most likely one to be available to somebody. But I just think Trae Young's he's not a phenomenal three-point shooter, and he has turnover issues, which Jaylen Brown in the playoffs has turnover issues. So you're getting a shooter, which I'm sure Joe Mazzulla loves because he likes that 3 ideology. If the Celtics do decide to retain Malcolm Brogdon, which honestly he costs you a pretty.
They're going to have to. They're going to have to retain him now.
You're going to need to.
He's going to be the starting. He's going to
be
the starting point guard, and White is going to be the shooting guard, and Jaylen Brown is going to step up to small forward.
Yeah, no,
that's what's going to happen.
That's probably going to be the starting lineup, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Smart, Brogdon, Brown, Tatum, and was Horford at the opening of the season last year. And then Brogdon got benched for Derek White, because Derek White stepped it up with his 3-point shooting. He had actually a very, very good year. But that's what you do. You would get rid of because you're not gonna be able to afford two guys, $613 million, and then bring in another guy who will bring maybe $240-50 million over 5 years, 6 years onto your team and say, oh yeah, $800 million amongst 3 players. You're gonna be, while your talent up top may be great, you'll be like the Suns and what the Heat will be if they trade for Dame, if they add a bunch of players for Dame. They're just going to be versions of that we saw. Yeah, they're going to be great. You're going to have 3 absolutely amazing pieces to your team. It's going to be fun to watch when your starting lineup's out. But when they get benched, you're going to have guys like Jordan Walsh and Sam Hauser and Luke Cornett and Peyton Pritchard and Demetrius Jackson on the team. No one wants to watch that. That ain't a winning team. That ain't and a bunch of other players too. Justin Champagne, or however you pronounce his name. O'Shea Brissett. You don't want to watch these guys play basketball. You want superstars out there. You at least want efficient rotational and role players out there. That's why Bruce Brown was fun. Christian Braun was fun. These guys put in a bunch of energy. They added something to the Nuggets bench. They actually made the Nuggets bench somewhat viable because of the amount of effort that they put in. So I really do not see a scenario. And by the way, Jaylen Brown, you would also need to add someone else. My centers, at least, Embiid and Giannis. I guess Giannis, it could be a forward and a center, but
Giannis is not a center.
He's a big man. I think he's 6'10", 6'11", so he could play either role.
Yeah, but then the Celtics are where they've been before. They not have the biggest guy underneath. They don't have it with Horford and Williams, right? They suffer underneath.
Well, I think Horford may be gone next year, and Robert Williams has health issues. So let's say Kristaps Porzingis has a pretty good year, right? And let's say he loves his time in Boston, and let's say they go far in the playoffs. Would he take a discount for Boston? Maybe. If he does, you trade away Jaylen Brown in that massive deal. You bring in one of these guys, a Giannis or an Embiid, and then you actually have a really, really reliable big man that could substitute for Al Horford in his age, and I'm assuming he retires at the end of this year. Even then, though, you would need him to fill in for Horford, or Horford to fill in for you. And Robert Williams is dealing with injuries that actually have made the Celtics suffer a little bit, at least defensively. And he's not a shooter. He doesn't have a mid-range shot.
No, but he's a good player, though.
He's a great defender and a valuable asset to the Celtics, but his health is a major concern for him. So that's what I truthfully think the Celtics, if they're going to do this massive player, Karl Anthony Towns could also be available. You could add him also. That could be an interesting piece. I really do not see a scenario where you go in and you make a big 3 in Boston, signing 2 players to supermax extensions. $613 million.
Right. You're probably right.
Over 2 players. I just really can't see it. So, I believe that wraps up this episode of the Harvey Hour. Some little minute changes that you, the viewer, can't see. A lot of moving pieces and stuff will be, over the course of about a week or so, we'll have some other things. We forgot to turn these red, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that. These are blue.
Yeah.
These are blue.
Oh.
So
today's Monday. Blue sky today.
No, it's Monday. It's sad. No one likes Mondays. So we will see you guys. My name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We are the co-hosts of the Harvey Hour. We'll see you guys on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Something's
Bye,
may
Grandpa.
change. Something's not. Number one
Hey,
fan.
Grandpa.
Thank you for supporting the channel always. But like I said, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's my Stephen Harvey. We're the Harvey Hour. Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Bye-bye.
Introducing video podcasts on Spotify.
Transform your storytelling into a show everyone can watch
Or listen to.
Easily upload your video through Anchor, Spotify's free podcast creation tool.
So whether you're showing off a new recipe
Interviewing an exclusive guest,
or uncovering the next mystery,
you can now reach a whole new audience with Spotify.
podcasting just became more than audio.
Create with